Wednesday, November the 1st. Lake level is still right about 916, which has been there for 3 or 4 weeks. It hadn't changed very much. The water temperature changing quite a bit. It's finally starting to go down. It depends where you're at, but you'll find, if you're in the river arms, you'll find some mid-50s. The main lake yesterday was probably right around 60 degrees, 59 to 60 degrees. Now with that water temperature and stuff cooling down, the fishing is getting a little better, but it's still tough out there. A lot of things are starting to happen, it's just not happening real fast. But as the water continues to cool down, you know, the bait's showing up a lot more. There's a little bit of schooling activity going on, some topwater fish. And as that water cools down, especially in the river arms, really keep an eye out on for the big gizzard shad. If you can find them up on some of that black ledge rock, kind of going into the creeks and on secondary points, is a good place to throw a spinnerbait or crankbait. But the crankbait bite, you know, should get a lot better. It's been real good over at Bull Shoals, so you know, it should get a lot better here on Table Rock. And a lot of the crankbaits I've been throwing, this is a little 3X Strike King, but I'm throwing about this size crankbait, anything that'll run 6 to about 10 feet. Wiggle warts will work. They've been working real good for me over at Bull Shoals and a little bit here. And also a Spro rock crawler. Seems like crawdad pattern, something with a little green and red's been working best for me. And you know, a lot of the places we've been fishing them is on a lot of these bluffs, especially if you're up in the river arms. What you want to do is kind of key on the channel side of the bank on some of these straight up and down bluffs. And the key on these bluffs are places where there's rock slides, little indentations or cuts or any kind of wood. They seem to be, you know, right up tight. You want to set your boat right up tight on the bluff where you can almost reach out and touch it, and then just kind of parallel down, you know, the bluff with the bait, depending on how deep it is. If it drops off pretty quick, you want to be up there real tight so you can keep that bait anywhere from 6 to 12 feet deep. If you're further up in the rivers and it's kind of a little bit flatter coming off the bluff, where you can set the boat in about 15 to 17 feet and cast towards the bluff, you know, cast that way to try to keep that bait. Like I say, try to keep that bait in that 6 to 12 foot range. And you don't necessarily have to be bouncing off the bottom. It seems like any place there's a rock change on them bluffs where it goes from, like I said, sheer bluff to rock slides and even the bluff ends. Now on the bluff ends, if I can't get the crankbait to work, and it's working a little bit better on overcast days with a little bit of breeze. You know, a little wind seems to help it a bunch. If you don't get any wind, I've been able to go to the bluff ends on the bluff end points and throw a football jig, and I've been throwing anywhere from a 1/2 ounce to a 5/8 ounce jig. And I'm just tipping it with any kind of twin tail. This has got a Zoom Speed Craw. This other one here has got a Strike King Rage Craw on it. But I'm using greens and browns, like a peanut butter jelly, green pumpkin purple. This is it's a pig sticker. It's called a Crunchy PBJ with a little bit of purple in it. But I'm fishing that anywhere from about 8 feet out to probably 20, 25 feet deep on the bluff ends. And also on some of the swings, you know, right in the bluff where the channel swings in or swings out away from the bluff. There's starting to be some drop shot fish. You know, they're starting to group up a little bit out there and seem like quite a bit deeper water, from 35 to 45 feet out off of these main lake flat gravel points. And you know, all these bites should get better as that water gets down into the lower 50s. The crankbait and the spinnerbait bite is going to get better. The drop shot fish, you'll find more and more fish grouping up out there. You kind of got two groups of fish and shad this time of year. You'll have the shad that'll be out there deep with a lot of the deep fish, and then you'll have a lot of shad that'll migrate back into the creeks. You know, the shad that are migrating back into the creeks, that's where your crankbait, jig, spinnerbait will work good. And the ones that are out there deep, that's where the drop shot and the spoon and even a deep football jig will work good out there. And what I've been drop shotting is a 4-inch worm. This is similar to like a robo worm. White River Lures makes it. It's a Chompers brown purple lamb, and this is another White River's plum. Now another thing I'll throw out there this time of year, instead of always just throwing a 4-inch worm, is this is a little tiny Zoom fluke, and this is a White River Lures makes it. It's the same size as the little fluke, but 3.5, 4-inch bait. But I'll drop shot this a lot in the fall around the shad and the fish, and a lot of times too I'll also pick up a 1/2 ounce like a War Eagle white jigging vertical, jigging spoon, and fish it vertically. When I find them, right now, if you find them big groups of shad, what you want to do is key on fishing underneath the bait. And sometimes you might be out there in 50 foot of water and you'll see some fish up there suspended 25 to 30 feet. Try to get your bait down to that 25, 30 foot range. A lot of the fish I've been catching doing that have been right on the bottom, anywhere from 42 to 48 feet deep. They've been really deep out there in the points. And I mentioned seeing quite a few schooling fish, or not quite a few, a lot more than I have a week or two ago. And what seems to be working best on those for me is a walking bait. Like a popar will work, Yellow Magic, which is just like a popar. The one I've been having the best luck with is a Strike King Sexy Dog, which is just like a Zara spook. And I've been throwing this on the secondary points and back in the creeks, a lot of the same places you would throw a jerkbait in the springtime, over hardwoods and around cedar trees. It seems like the deeper coves seem to be working a little bit better for me with this. And another thing that'll also work in them same trees is a spinnerbait, which is a kind of a fall time deal. We'll take a War Eagle, Screaming Eagle, which the bait's got 1/4 ounce blades, but it's a 1/2 ounce bait where you can make long casts with it, and you can burn it over the top of these cedar trees and hardwoods. I'll just kind of mix it up. Some days they'll bite the spinnerbait, and some days they'll bite a topwater bait. Right here recently, it seems like the slower moving topwater bait's been a little bit more productive. As the fish get more aggressive, the spinnerbait should come, more into play. But, it's typical fall fishing. I think we're finally starting to get where we should have been 2 or 3 weeks ago with water temperature. So I really expect the fishing to pick up quite a bit more. And another thing to keep in mind too, it's about time to drag that Alabama rig out. When that water starts cooling down into the 50s like this and the shad are moving around, it's a good time to start throwing that Alabama rig. Get your shoulders and arms should be rested up from not throwing it all summer. But that's a good way to catch some big fish this time of year in a lot of the same areas where I'm throwing a spinnerbait and a spook. So until next week, good luck, good fishing.